I've been speaking about the humanitarian crisis with Sam Rose, the Director of Planning at UNRWA, the UN agency that supports Palestinian refugees. Sam Rose, thanks for joining us once again on BBC News. You're in Nuseirat at the moment. What is the situation like there now?
I mean, it's 9:30 at night now, so it's obviously dark, but around us, above us, the sound of drones continues. If tonight is like any other nights, there'll be bombardments behind me and to the north and the south. People are still milling around outside, but it's the end of yet another difficult, grinding day for the people of Gaza.
And as you say there, people are outside, although there are drones there and possibly an attack to come. Do they have anywhere to go?
I mean, the people in Nuseirat, many of them fled here when the Rafah operation started in early May. We've had new evacuation orders a few days ago issued in Khan Yunis, which is a city to the south. People fled from there. We estimate about 70,000 people have fled, but no, for many of them, there is nowhere to go. The quote unquote safe places in Gaza are already occupied, and the people fleeing know that these places aren't safe. Many have been targeted or died or killed on the way to these places, or when they've made it to Mawasi. Similar things have happened to them as well. So there's not really anywhere for people to go, and the fear is here that if the ceasefire talks that are ongoing right now collapse yet again, it will be yet another cycle and yet another round of displacement for people here in the middle area of Gaza.
And is there much comprehension of or understanding of where those talks are at and what's happening in the wider international scene?
Not for people on the ground here. People just, there's a daily struggle for survival here. People are thinking of their immediate needs. Where am I going to get my next meal? Where am I going to get water to drink, to wash my clothes, to go to the toilet? What am I going to do to meet the needs of the children? So that the ceasefire talks are a world away from the civilian population of Gaza, but of course have major consequences on their prospects and their future.
And Sam, on that issue of food, as we know, so many people are on the verge of famine, haven't had enough to eat for months now. What do you have as a humanitarian agency to give to people at this point?
We have very little. There's very little that we've been able to bring in through the Kerem Shalom Rafah crossing since the beginning of May. So the displacements that happened from Khan Yunis, we were able to distribute some flour. We had some of those supplies in stock, but otherwise very difficult. We have hundreds and hundreds of containers stuck in Egypt and trapped at the border in Kerem Shalom, and as long as the access constraints persist at that border, it will be very difficult for us to get food in. Now, there are some commercial supplies on the market. There are some fresh fruit, fresh vegetable, but very difficult for your regular people to afford that. Prices have risen considerably since the start of the conflict, and people aren't working, so they have no means to secure them. So whilst commercial supplies, some of them are coming in, which is a good thing, they don't help us to meet the needs of the vulnerable. And it's a similar situation up in the north. We have been able to get food in to northern Gaza. Some supplies are now coming in. So with the displacement from eastern Gaza City just a few days ago, we were able to provide food. We were able to provide some water. This is UNRWA in cooperation with other humanitarian partners up there. But supplies are running extremely low. It's a battle. It's a struggle every day to bring things in, to bring the supplies in, but also to bring the fuel in, to get those supplies around and to navigate our safe passage across checkpoints and through what is increasingly squeezed space in Gaza. New evacuation orders issued in Khan Yunis just a few days ago cover a quarter of the entire land area of the Gaza Strip. So the safe space in which we're operating as a humanitarian community is becoming increasingly squeezed into the central area of the Gaza Strip.
And Sam, you mentioned fuel there. We heard from doctors during the week who were saying they were a few hours away from running out of fuel to power incubators and oxygen supplies and so on. Has there been any improvement in the amount of fuel that you have been able to get in?
Not really over the past few days. Every time we go and collect fuel, we have to go through a combat zone, an active combat zone in southern Gaza. The process very convoluted, complicated, dangerous for the staff involved. We never quite know how much fuel we're going to bring in on any given day. We typically bring in far less than we need, and there's a very complicated, delicate, difficult process then of assigning allocations of fuel for the different service providers. It's life-saving hospitals who need it for their generators, for their incubators, for medical equipment, but it's also water wells, desalination plants to provide safe water to the population, as well as the fleet that we need to move ourselves around, and the power that the telecommunications companies need as well. Now, there are hopes that some of the electricity supplies rather will be restored to some of one of the desalination plants. That will improve things and take the pressure off. But every time during the last 9 months when we think we've made progress, something else happens and it's another step back. So until there is a ceasefire, until there is a sustained, regular, predictable flow of supplies and fuel coming in, the stories that you heard from the hospital director, one of many across the Gaza Strip, will continue, and there will be life-saving or life-losing consequences of our inability to provide that fuel to keep those services running.